I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and you may have heard that the House of Commons has basically ground to a halt lately because of a particular privilege debate. Now, what this means is that whenever there's a question of privilege, that supersedes all other business in the House of Commons because the idea is that these are powers that help the MPs to do their jobs, and when something is infringed on them, that is of the utmost importance so that that infringement can be taken care of so that MPs can get on with their jobs. Now, what's happened in this particular case is around the audit of Sustainable Development Technologies Canada. The Conservatives have a particular nickname for it, which I'm not going to repeat here. But the Auditor General found particular problems with some of its governance, and that some of the projects that received funding had some particular conflicts of interest. Of note was the fact, though, that none of this tied back to the government itself. SDTC operated as an arm's length Crown corporation. It was set up that way by the Conservative government under Stephen Harper. And these were all arm's length decisions that had no particular political interference or implications. But that hasn't stopped the Conservatives from trying to use the words corruption and that kind of thing in their debates, because they're trying to create a link to the government in order to kind of show that, these were supposedly liberal insiders, even though the Auditor General didn't say that at all. That they're trying to create this notion that, the current government is so corrupt that they need to be replaced. None of that's actually borne out in fact, but this is the narrative that they're trying to sell and why they repeat it so often. So part of what has happened here is that as part of this investigation or the audit, MPs, particularly Conservatives, have decided that they want to use their powers as parliamentarians to summon all these documents related to SDTC and then forward them to the RCMP for a criminal investigation, even though the Auditor General found no evidence of criminality and the RCMP has found no evidence of criminality in what was going on. Nevertheless, these powers have been invoked, and some people, including the Auditor General, have not turned over their documents because, in the Auditor General's case, that impacts on her independence. And so she doesn't want to cooperate because that implication on her independence as an officer of Parliament. This is what the breach of privilege is about. And it's also worth noting that the RCMP have said that they do not want these documents because that would amount to being tainted evidence. They couldn't use them in court because they were obtained in ways that violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, Parliament does have this power, but it's rather should they use this power, because we are bordering onto Banana Republic territory in terms of having politicians direct police to investigate people that they don't like. And that's very, very problematic and something we really do not want to go down in this country. And yet they are trying to force this to happen. So what is happening in the House of Commons right now is that the Speaker has ruled that, yes, there was a prima facie case of privilege being breached because these documents were not turned over. But the recommendation was that this would go to the Procedure and House Affairs Committee so that it can be studied and debated and a remedy can be devised. But the Conservatives aren't letting that happen. Instead, they are basically filibustering their own motion and making amendments to it and talking out the clock and putting every single one of their MPs up to debate. And because this takes precedence over other business in the House, this has gone on for several days now and will likely continue for several more, because this is a deliberate attempt to make Parliament look like it's not functioning. Again, this is all in service of them saying things are so horribly broken, we need an election so that we can come to power. That's the entire strategy. This could end if the Bloc and the NDP decided to be adults in the room and realize that this is Banana Republic behavior and that they should probably not go along with it, but they haven't so far. And so the government is basically being forced to wait out as the Conservatives have every one of their MPs speak to these motions before they can be voted on, before it can go to committee to be resolved. But that's going to slow down the business of the House. That's going to impact the ability of the government to get its business done because time is finite and the parliamentary clock is short, or a calendar is short. And the notion is try and make Parliament dysfunctional so that they can justify an election. We'll see what the other two opposition parties have to say as this goes on, and they have other business that they want attended to, but we'll see. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.